Howdy, all. Just when you think that big screw-ups are limited to presidential elections, we have the Academy Awards. Thank you very much. And I have to say, Russ, because I worked in a movie theater for 10 years. I'm a movie buff. Love watching the Academy Awards. The scenery is quite beautiful. And, Halle Berry, in spite of the fact that she had a hairdo that looked like Medusa, looked great. Charlize Theron, a number of beautiful ladies. I'll leave it to the ladies to talk about the guys. But the moment of the evening is always Best Picture.
Sure.
Comes the Best Picture. They bring out, for the 50th anniversary of Bonnie and Clyde, they bring out Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway.
Right. Now, how old's Faye Dunaway?
I think she's in her 70s.
Okay.
Warren Beatty is definitely in his 70s and looks it.
Yeah.
So they don't even have to name the nominees. They do a presentation, a video presentation. Right. It reveals it all. So they didn't have to even name them. They just did this little preamble, go to the video, come back, and Warren Beatty says, and the winner is, and he opens up the envelope, and he pauses for like a minute. And you get the feeling that everybody thought it was sort of dramatic license. Like he was building up the tension. And then he says, La La Land.
Right.
And I was watching this out someplace. And as soon as he said La La Land, I got up. I was writing something last night for the website, got up and left. And only when I came back home did I find out that apparently Price Waterhouse, who deserves the blame here, screwed up. There were 2 envelopes for Best Actress.
So there were 2 envelopes. Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah, because Emma Stone, who won Best Actress, had the envelope for Best Actress. She was keeping it.
Okay.
So Warren Beatty has Actress in a Leading Role envelope in his hand. He's confused. He doesn't know what's going on, and he hands it. The only thing you can blame Warren Beatty on is he threw Faye Dunaway under the bus because she probably doesn't know what's going on. He hands her the card. She says La La Land, not really looking at the card, just seeing La La Land. The people from La La Land come up on stage and start realizing they didn't win the Best Picture.
Right.
The movie Moonlight won it. So it was just this big kerfuffle, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
So let me say what I think should have happened. So at first I was wondering, was it a teleprompter issue? I guess it wasn't.
No.
Okay. So here's the thing. Warren Beatty had the correct envelope because the other person held it up and it said the right movie. Well, I guess the one he opened, which envelope did he open?
The one he opened was a duplicate Best Actress envelope.
But I can see there was a correct Moonlight one that was held up.
Yeah, somebody else came out.
Oh, they handed that. Okay. So here's the thing. All right. So at that point, why isn't it on the teleprompter the correct one?
They don't want the secret to get out. That's the whole thing. It's like
well, I think it should be on a teleprompter from now on. I do, because
either that or I mean, what ideally in 2020 hindsight, what Warren Beatty should have done. And it's easier for me to say this and not be him who's in front, 100 million people across the world are watching, is he should have turned and said, guys, this is the envelope for Best Actress. And somebody,
here I'm going to give you a theory on that.
Okay.
I don't think he could read the envelope. He didn't have glasses on. He looked like he tried to read it and couldn't. Faye Dunaway looked like she tried to read it and couldn't.
Right.
Maybe you should have younger actors and actresses with this award, because didn't you get the feeling that he couldn't read what was on there?
Yeah, I understand why they do. They always have like an actor emeritus out there. It's always Dustin Hoffman or Harrison Ford or Jack Nicholson or somebody.
Just give him an eye test, man. That's all I'm saying.
But honestly, it was funny because all night, and the thing is, I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but all night it was Jimmy Kimmel was the host. It was all Matt Damon jokes because him and Matt Damon have this joke thing going back.
Okay.
That's really sort of uncomfortable, even though it's contrived. Like after a while, could you drop the Matt Damon crap? It's like this plus every other thing. The people who won or Jimmy Kimmel, it was a Trump joke. It's like, oh my God, just get.
Yeah, I'm just glad I missed it. Honestly, I'm glad I missed it. here's the reality of the Oscars in my house for me. 9 times out of 10, I have not seen one movie that is Oscar nominated. Now, I may have seen a movie that wins Special Effects Award, wins, worst screenplay, because if that were the case, it would be Suicide Squad.
Right.
No, you heard I said worst screenplay.
Well, yeah, no, and funny thing is, Suicide Squad won an Oscar for.
I know. What did they win for? I heard they won
special effects, I think.
Okay, and that's fine.
Or makeup or something.
Makeup. I could see him winning for makeup, but that's my point. Those are the only kinds of movies I end up seeing that win an Oscar. Most of the time, the ones that are up for Best Picture, you're lucky if I've seen one. And even when they win an Oscar, I don't go rush out and see it. So I don't, it doesn't even matter to me.
Well, this last thing, we'll start talking hockey now. I think there were 8 nominees for Best Picture. In a normal year, I would see maybe 3 or 4. This year, I saw 1, and not out of any animus to the other movies. It's just like a lot of them came out around Christmas time.
Well, my feeling about a movie like La La Land. People do not walk around in everyday life singing and dancing and just acting like that. So it's like, I'm not a fan of those movies. I never have been. I never will be. My parents tried to get me to watch Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and I didn't care. Yeah,
no, the only one I saw was Hacksaw Ridge. Thought it was great, but the other ones I didn't see. So anyway, it just
like the movies like La La Land, like Chicago, like any of them, I don't see it.
No, not even going back to Grease. I didn't.
Grease, I saw.
Yeah, I saw it, but begrudgingly because my mother wanted to go. Yeah. Okay, let's start the show. And Eck will be here momentarily. He said there was some news he was compiling for the deadline. So, hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, February 27th, 2017.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Over the weekend, there were a couple, I think, significant trades leading up to the deadline on Wednesday. Russ, let's first discuss the Ben Bishop deal. Bishop goes along with a low draft pick to the LA Kings for Peter Budaj, for Eric Cernak, a prospect defenseman, second-round pick from 2015, who's playing with the Erie Otters of the OHL, and a conditional pick that apparently, based on Bishop's how many games he plays or performance, as much as a second-round pick. But it's probably going to be, I think they said 4th round. So, mostly Tampa Bay got cap relief from this deal and got a prospect defenseman in Cernak.
Yeah, they got a useful defenseman. I just saw him recently. I like Cernak. We've talked about him on our show on Sirius on Hockey Prospect Radio with Michael Fuda, and they liked him in the sense that they liked his skating ability and his physical edge. He's one of those guys that likes to elbow, and he's one of those guys. I think he's about 6'2". I got to look it up.
Yeah, 6'1" or 6'2".
Yeah.
6'2", yeah.
And you know what? Think about it. I mean, these are the kinds of players Tampa does need. Now, I'm not saying he's ready next year, but what I'm saying is to get him included in a deal like that is pretty shrewd, because I feel like Steve Yzerman has made a lot of good deals for his club, because he's one of the few GMs out there that has a club that on any given year could, compete for the Stanley Cup, but also has a deep prospect pool. That's a hard thing to pull off.
Now, Yzerman's retaining 20% of Bishop's salary for the rest of the year, but the motivation here for the deal from the Tampa Bay perspective was first getting Cernak, but second of all, by getting rid of 80% of Bishop's salary, which is over $4 million, they can absorb the rookie bonuses on the contract bonuses on a few players, including Jonathan Drouin.
Right.
And that opens up some space for next year, rather than, they can absorb it this year rather than on next year's cap. So that's a benefit to them. Now for LA, and I know I don't know if it's a difference of opinion, but I saw on Saturday, I saw Jonathan Quick make his first start since coming back from the injury. Quick looked really good in a 4-1 win over Anaheim. There's been no indication of any kind of re-injury, but the justification on the part of Dean Lombardi for this deal was Quick as an acrobatic goaltender. we're making sure that we have a number one because we think that if even if he gets hurt, if we have a number one like Bishop, we could still make a run in the playoffs. You're skeptical.
Well, no offense to Dean Lombardi, who I have great respect for, but if I believed everything a general manager said out in public, I wouldn't have a job. And so my skepticism is they wanted to bring Quick back and test him. He didn't have a conditioning stint. He didn't do anything like that. Essentially, that was his conditioning stint. And so what they probably found out is he's not 100%. So now they went and got Bishop because they realized, okay, we need to make the playoffs in the market that we're in, and Peter Budaj is not going to carry us there because we're already 3 points out and we don't want to go fall further behind. So at the end of the day, what I think they did was smart. But when you see that Ben Bishop is starting the next game, it does lead to the belief that Jonathan Quick's not 100%.
And maybe that means they rotate them. They go game in, game out, go Quick one game. He maybe needs more time to recover after each start. I mean, like I said, he did not appear phased at all in that performance. He even did the gymnastic split going.
Again, when he did that gymnastic split, we don't know what it looked like hours later.
Oh yeah, no. That's the thing. It's like if they thought, and there have been indications that Sutter was starting to become a little bit disenchanted with Budaj.
Sure.
Because honestly, they can't
think about it from these terms. They need to win most of their games, right? Because if they want to make the playoffs, they have to outpace St. Louis, at least today. To do that, who gives you a better chance of winning, Jonathan Quick or Ben Bishop?
Well, Jonathan Quick, if he's 100%.
So if they're putting in Ben Bishop for their next game, are you going to tell me that was part of the rotation? No, they didn't have a rotation because Quick just came back. Quick was rested for all of this time.
Right.
So now there's something else up.
Right. I mean, I think, but the thing is that Bishop is a number one. It's not like Ben Bishop is chopped liver.
No. It's not what I'm saying.
I know you're not. I'm just saying for. Okay. They were obviously going out to get a goaltender because they knew Quick would not be 100% right away. So I think it's good insurance. It's not saying that Quick got re-injured in the game. They're fearful of him getting re-injured, or they know that he cannot take on the workload that he had in the past.
But didn't Bishop have a no trade?
I think it was a limited no trade.
Okay, so here's my point on that. For Bishop to go to the Kings, he probably had to be told that there would be a significant amount of playing time for him. Otherwise, why would he go?
Well, I mean, yeah, Lombardi and even Quick are, they're tied into USA Hockey, so he knows them.
Right.
I'm sure he had some assurances. And honestly, if Tampa is now 6 points out of a playoff spot.
Forget that. I mean, Bishop is a number one goalie in this league, right?
Right.
I'm sure, and he hasn't won a Stanley Cup.
Mm-hmm. I'm
sure he would like to be a big part of a Stanley Cup winning team. With Jonathan Quick in front of him, under normal circumstances, that's not the case.
Right.
That's why these are not normal circumstances, because I don't think he would have approved the trade.
He probably thinks that he has a better chance of getting into the playoffs and winning a Stanley Cup, even if it is as a 1B. In LA, than with Tampa, who Stamkos is just starting to skate now.
Because I'll give you a scenario. Let's say this were New York and Antti Raanta came up hurt, and the Rangers try to trade for Ben Bishop. Do you think Bishop would go and be Lundqvist's backup? I don't think so.
No.
So there has to be something else at play. He's going to get playing time. There's no question about this, or he wouldn't have come.
Oh yeah. No, that's why I think that there's at least going to be a rotation. Let's just say this.
That's what I'm saying, right? Normally with Jonathan Quick, there would be no rotation.
Right. In the last 5 weeks of the season, I would be shocked if Ben Bishop doesn't play close to 40% of the starts. And if that's the case, then you're right. Then Ben Quick has come back and he's not 100%, and he's come back just to try to get
help his team win.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep,
but
that's where I think they're at.
Yeah, Now, question is, and they looked impressive against Anaheim. The question is, can LA get in the playoffs? You said they're 3 points behind. I mean, they're trying to catch Calgary. Calgary is hot right now.
I think LA will get in. I do. I'm in that camp.
Well, and see, the funny thing is Calgary is, and we'll get X thoughts on this. He'll be on the show in a minute or two. Calgary is the team that I thought was the team that was out there looking for the goaltender. Brian Elliott is apparently playing better lately, and they don't think that that's a focus that they need, that they need to solve right now, or a problem they need to solve right now. But I mean, if I'm Calgary, I don't care the way Brian Elliott is playing right now. I care about what he can do in the playoffs.
I think the Kings will get in because they know how to get in. I think it's literally that simple. I know it's 3 points, but they know how to get in, and if they're close, they usually get in. Let's talk a little bit. I think we should talk a little bit about Arizona because here's the thing. Not even bringing up exactly who they've traded, although we know they've traded Hansel and we know they've traded Stone. Here's an interesting thing that I was looking at. So in the last week, they've traded, Hansel, who's 30, who was a homegrown guy. They've traded Michael Stone, who was 26, who was a homegrown guy. And they even have Anthony Duclair in the minors, who's 21 and clearly ready to play in the NHL. We hear that he'll be traded.
Verbata. Yeah.
Verbata will get traded, but he was a one-year deal. The only guy they signed in the offseason that I could find to a multi-year deal was
Goligoski.
Who? Goligoski? Oh, and McGinn. Okay, so there were two guys.
Right.
Okay. Beyond that, even next year, under the best of circumstances, with more rookies coming up like Clayton Keller and such, they're not going to be able to field a competitive team. They're not.
No, not unless, and this is the thing with the clearing out of Datsuk's last year, that bailout contract trade that happened with them in Detroit, with the last year of the Pronger deal, with now the trade of Stone that was $4 million, with the trade of Hansel that was $3.1 million. You're talking about $18 million in cap space right there. Now the question, and you were right to say this: will they spend it?
Right.
If they don't, then I call this what it should be called, which is a perpetual rebuild.
They're like the 76ers. I mean, this is what the 76ers fans have been going through. In a sense, they're similar to what the Edmonton Oilers fans were going through. My whole point is, it's great that they got a lot of assets from Minnesota. Terrific. But you also traded Ryan White, another useful player. In any of these trades, the fact that they didn't get a roster player, draft picks are unknown. Roster players are known.
Right. But
these are not terrific trades, because when I go and look at their roster, I should have been able to trade, if nothing else, for a burgeoning AHL, NHL talent, at least in one of these trades, to put back on my roster. Because as much as they say, hey, we've got young defensemen coming,
right,
they don't have enough for a good defense core next year.
No, but see, this is okay. First, Arizona tried to talk to Shattenkirk, tried to get a deal done, tried to make a trade.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't work. They did go out and sign Goligoski.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're, what they're trying to do the Hansel deal, you had to do that. I know, I understand your point that you need to bring back assets, but if you
need to bring back an actual body,
right? But the thing is, if you're an organization, and I'm not saying Arizona will do this, but most organizations in the NHL, if you get assets, like future assets, like draft picks, you can flip those or turn those into actual bodies.
They've been unable to do that, though.
Well, they've been unable or unwilling to do it because the bodies have a salary.
Or how about this? This is a novel idea, but how about this? Minnesota is going to have too many defensemen for the upcoming expansion draft.
Right.
If I'm the GM, I'm playing hardball, even up to the last minute, saying, hey, if you want Hansel, then give me that defenseman that you can't protect, whether it's Brodin, whether it's Christian Folin. Give me one of them. That's what they should have gotten.
Right. Okay, and I'll use the Leafs as an example because that's the one I know the best.
Right.
They get a first-round pick in the Phil Kessel deal. They get a series of second-round picks last year in the deal for Roman Polak and the deal for Dion Phaneuf. So they had 3 second-round picks in the upcoming draft.
Right.
They traded that first and one of the seconds in the deal to get Freddie Anderson. That is what
That's what you do.
That is what Chaika has to do. You pile up assets. You accumulate as many as you possibly can, but then you need to convert them into actual bodies. And what I am concerned about with the Coyotes right now, Russ, is that you have, like I said, this perpetual rebuild where the guy is coming up on the contract, expiring. There's no talk of an extension unless it's to their advantage. Maybe they go out and re-sign Hansel after the year.
Okay, let's stop there. Okay, re-signing Hansel. If you're Martin Hansel and you get a taste of a winning team, and let's say Minnesota says, hey, we'd love to have you back next year, but you got to come in at a little less. Are you going to go back in and get underpaid in Phoenix in Arizona, or are you going to get underpaid in Minnesota where you have a chance to win? You tell me.
Well, that's the key point is the word underpaid. Vermette was not underpaid when he came back to Arizona after he was traded to Chicago.
Okay, that's fair.
They gave him $3.85 million, and Vermette is not a $3.85 million player. They ended up buying him out, and that was a mistake.
What is Hansel making? Do we know?
3-1.
Okay, so he's making 3-1, but my feeling is he probably can get 4.5 on the open market.
Sure, if Michael Bodker can get $4 million, he can get $4 million.
Yeah, and he's just a little more physically imposing. So. Is that what is Arizona prepared to give him like 4.5 for 4 or 5 years? I don't think so.
Well, the thing is, if they see Strome on their roster next year, if they see Keller on their roster next year, then maybe they don't bring him back.
But here's the thing. So again, how many rookies will you have on the roster? My whole feeling is I am a prospect guy, and I like to see teams promoting prospects. But as we've seen in this league, you have to have a mix. To me, player development is about drafting players, developing them, and then signing and keeping them. They don't have a good history of signing and keeping them. And matter of fact, Oliver Ekman-Larsson could be the latest case of having maybe not be able to retain a guy that you have gone out and here's the thing. It's not only when everybody says, hey, it's great they got all these assets and draft picks, that is great. But here's the thing. When you start putting in resources into developing these guys and training these guys and keeping these guys, and then when you lose them, just because you got like a number 1 and a 3 and what, you put more effort into it than that.
Well, okay,
that's what people don't factor in. They're only factor in, hey, he was a first rounder, and now you've got extra picks. What I'm factoring in is you've had this guy for 9 or 10 years, and you know what he can do in your team. Teammates love him. Shane Doan clearly doesn't want to play without him because he was visibly upset last night talking about it.
Let's talk about that in a second. But let me just say this: Larson is 2 more years at $5.5 million. He will be 28 at the end of that contract. The bulk of his prime spent in Arizona. If you think, I don't care how much he loves it, this is his opportunity to make. Because he's one of the best defensemen in the league, to make $7.5, $8 million a year and win.
Right. Like the LA Kings in free agency, if they make an offer to Oliver Ekman-Larsson that's the same as the Coyotes, who would you go to?
The Kings.
Because even if the Coyotes rookies are all up, it's still going to take 2 or 3 years for them to get good, and you're already more than halfway into the next contract of Larson, and he still hasn't even played that much in the playoffs.
But we're gonna start. If they keep going down this road, we're going to start hearing Oliver Ekman-Larsson trade rumors this summer because they can maximize their value with him under control for 2 more years at $5.5 million. They could make a killing in a trade. But the thing is, to your point, where does it stop?
This is, to me, the theory of I lease a car, and every couple of years I get a new car, and so like now. Every couple of years, they get rid of players, and they get new draft picks and new players and new hope. But I got to believe at some point fans are going to be upset because they haven't really been – it hasn't really been said to them what the plan is for this team. I put it out on Twitter today, what is the Arizona plan, and nobody was able to chime in and tell me what their plan is. If you tell me – if they came out today and said we're going through a full rebuild, I'll leave them alone. But when you're going through a rebuild and you pick up Radim Vrbata, then it sends a mixed message because why sign guys to 1-year deals? And they signed a bunch of guys last year to 1-year deals. They're going to do the same thing this year. They're going to sign, maybe they might sign one multi-year deal. They might sign two on the cheap, but they're going to sign a bunch of one-year guys, and I don't think that benefits them moving forward.
Well, I mean, the plan may have been just to do, because they're basically following the same plan in terms of what Toronto did last year. A lot of one-year deals and then ship them out. A lot of guys with expiring contracts.
Right, but Toronto had more things in place. If we could spend a whole show, and we could probably do this in the summer, if we spend a whole show projecting what the next roster is with the Coyotes, just as an example, preseason we were like, hey, we're excited to see all these rookies. This is great. Now we're in late February. It's not great. Matter of fact, some of the young talent's not even there. Duclair's not even there anymore. Domi's hurt. Guys get injured. Just because you get all these young assets and things happen, things change. The plan can change, and that's why you have to have a mix of veterans and rookies, because as much as we like Dylan Strome, he's not 100% guaranteed lock.
Yeah, and there's some talk about Duclair being moved before Wednesday.
Right. So if you move a 21-year-old, what does that tell me?
Well, it depends on what you're getting back. If you get a 21-year-old back who's good, has as much talent as he does, then.
But he already had talent with Max Domi. Like, I still don't understand why they're so quick to move him. We've never heard an explanation. So, okay, we'll see what they get for him. I'll leave him alone on that. But just the idea is, I would just like to hear what the plan is. That's all. It's really easy.
Now, Shane Doan, in the first intermission of last night's game against the Sabres, was interviewed, and Russ, you had to be blind if you didn't think that he was visibly, and I mean, you could see the look on his face that he was perturbed. Now, and the thing is, he was perturbed even though Hansel's name has been one of the most prominent names in trade rumors. He probably knew that he was going, but just the actual fact that he got traded, and they got nothing back other than futures, and Doan is 40 years old, and futures aren't going to help Shane Doan in the rest of his career.
But he's probably been hearing that for the last 4 or 5 years.
Right. And now the question
that's where I think it's set in to his mind, like, I'm at the end of my career here. Yeah. They've been telling me this, and now they trade Hansel. Now what?
Yeah. Well, what is that Doan has a no move. Yeah, Doan has a no-move clause. He wants, apparently, to finish his career in Arizona. But, this is like a Mike Modano situation. Mike Modano played the last year of his career in Detroit. He moved. At that point, Dallas wasn't going anywhere, and they moved on. I mean, I understand the want for somebody to play his entire career for a team. I mean, Ty Cobb played for the Philadelphia A's at the end of his career. Right. A lot of people play in other places. I mean,
Babe Ruth, Brooklyn Dodgers.
Right. Well, a coach. He was the last.
I think he batted a couple times, didn't he?
It was only in like barnstorming things. See, the last team he played for was the Boston Braves.
Boston Braves, yeah.
But that being said, the thing is, it's like you had to see the writing on the wall if you were Doan that Hansel was being traded. You know that Verbata is going to be traded. You knew that Stone was going to be traded. If it took maybe he just couldn't control it was in the moment, a guy that he's played with for a decade. But I mean, he's got options. He can go to Chaika and say.
See, here's the thing. He does. He can go to Chaika. He could definitely get a trade. But if I'm any other player on that roster, I have to be asking, why did you trade Michael Stone? What's the reason? I know he had an off year, but so did the whole team. He's 26 years old. Are they really that stacked on defense that there's no problem losing a guy like this?
Well, I mean,
clearly they're the worst defensive team in the league.
Well, but the thing here with
minus 49 on differential.
Michael Stone came out of nowhere last year and got, I think it was 36 points, 6 goals, 30 assists. He gets an arbitration award or a 1-year contract. I can't remember if it was arbitration. I think it was $4 million. The year he's putting up now is not worth half of that. So that, I think, was the motivation there. He was an asset. He was 1 year away from being a UFA. They had to pay the money to keep him.
It's more about the money because technically most teams would wait till next year and see if he could recreate the year because the team had a down year. They don't want to pay the money. You just answered the question.
Yeah. So, I mean, now going back to the Kings here for a second,
Mhm.
there are rumors that the Kings are actively trying to find a home for Marian Gaborik. Okay, do we have a laugh track?
Yeah.
Because, okay, I understood the motivation of signing him to that long-term deal, but this is the thing that Lombardi should have been thinking about. You know, he's gotten himself in some trouble with the Dustin Brown contract, with the he escaped on the Mike Richards contract.
Right.
You got a 35-year-old chronically injured Marian Gaborik making almost $5 million a year, and he signed for another 4 years. So that means through age 39. I'm sure the LA Kings are praying that he wants to retire because that would relieve them of the cap responsibility. But if he wants to keep playing or if he wants to keep earning money, he's not going anywhere. So good luck. And good luck trying to find somebody to take on that contract unless it was sort of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hey, Marian, you're not playing. You're hurt now. We'll take on the cap space.
To play revisionist history, most people felt like, hey, he was pushed out of New York because John Tortorella didn't like him. That's fair. And actually, to be fair, Gaborik did not play well in his system. So I understood what the Rangers were doing. Now, in retrospect, it looks like the Rangers did the right thing because they would have been stuck with a contract at some point. I think the Kings were excited because Gaborik had a great year and they won the Stanley Cup. And now they're paying for it, and literally paying for it. Marian Gaborik is not going to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to be one of those players that when we talk about after he retires, who's a high draft pick with Hall of Fame talent, and he just couldn't stay healthy.
Right. Yeah, and I mean I looked at his games played over the last 4 years. It's the 1 year it's 22 games. The one good year that he had in the last few years, I think he played 65 games. He scored over 20 goals, but he's just consistently been hurt. And now the only fortunate thing here with the Kings is that this is not a 35 and over contract. So right. since it's not a 35 and over contract, if he does retire or if he does retire, it gets wiped clean. It doesn't stay on their cap.
One more quickie note. Brandon Manning got 2 games for that elbow in the Stadium Series game. I knew he was going to get at least 1. I figured 2. Bruce Bolton, who produces for Sirius XM, and I usually call into this Delic and Simmer shows on Fridays, and they have me on every week, astutely pointed out to me, because we didn't get to see a replay right away, that, hey, the puck wasn't there. And I rewinded in my mind, and I said, you're right. And that's when I knew not only would he get at least a game, but he might get 2 games. And what I would deem that as the McDavid elbow. He now has, again, Eck goes back and says, well, he's not a predatory guy, whatever he termed to me as. And I said, he's not, but he's now getting a reputation for that. And now another elbow to the head later, after McDavid, he's now on the list, as Chris Jericho would like to say.
Let's X trying to log on here.
Yeah. But do you agree? I mean, right now he's on the list.
Oh yeah, he's got a reputation. Sure. Now the thing is, I honestly didn't see 1 minute of the outdoor game in Pittsburgh because I was covering the Leafs and Habs up in Toronto. So how was the outdoor game, the spectacle, the whole thing?
It was great. I mean, the pace was great. I thought the fans were terrific. It was 67,800. Everything went off great. I mean, the music was good, although I heard people ripping Train for their first song. In the press box, it's hard to hear because you have the windows up. What I really heard, from song 2 to 4 was not really a problem. But I did see someone tweet to me today that, on Facebook, they were like, hey, the ratings were bad. And I'm like, you know what? Even if the ratings were bad for this game, they had 67,800 people. That, in the end, is a huge success. So these games don't have to be successful on TV. They really don't.
They didn't do Drops of Jupiter, did they? Hey, Ak.
Hey, guys.
Okay, rumor time.
One little thought up. Sorry. What? Man, crazy.
I did mention Brandon Manning because now he has a reputation. Whether you didn't think so or not, he clearly does.
I know. It's so funny. He does. He has it. It's just the funniest guy to get that from me because
I know.
I don't think it wasn't totally his fault, and I don't know.
It's the McDavid elbow, though. That's it.
It's so funny. It's just ironic. It's what it is. That's all right. I will say that I felt guilty watching that game indoors without being so warm. It was just like, I mean, it was so unbearably cold. And then the fact that like it was like a library in that press room. It was so quiet. They needed to pump some. They finally pumped the play-by-play, and which was really annoying because it was 5 seconds or 10 seconds delayed play-by-play.
Yeah, but I was okay with that. I didn't care.
But I was appreciative of the sound. I don't like to work in silence. And it was so quiet. It was.
If you don't want to work in silence, sit next to Mike.
No, I know. Bill and I were like trying to talk to each other, and it was like,
I'm no better. I'm really no better.
Hey, thanks, Ross. Thank you.
All right, let's get going here. Sorry, I know you guys have been going for a while.
Yeah, we talked about the two trades.
Yeah. And I did talk about whatever the plan may be for the Arizona Coyotes. It's very unclear at this point because they're dropping players that are in their prime, before their prime. So I don't know what their plan is. I wish we would hear what their plan is. That's all.
I know, and I know you probably talked about the Shane Doan thing, but I just it was interesting because I immediately thought of Mike when I saw it, just because Mike is that you're just that that heartless guy who thinks this is all just about assets and stuff like that, and no, I'm just saying because it's obvious that it's not about assets all the time, and
no, it's about assets for the Coyotes.
No, but if you're Shane Doan, you're sitting there and you're saying, this could be my last year I'm playing, and I've it's just I've been working my tail off and he's been trying all year to make the playoffs. Don't confuse that. It's like that has been Shane Doan's goal to make.
Let me ask you this, Zach, because I would like to get your input. Yeah. I was very surprised so far with all these trades Arizona has made. They haven't brought back an actual body that they could put in their lineup, or at least put in their lineup at the beginning of next year. I think that is a fail, regardless of how many assets they're building, because they need actual bodies on this team.
They do, and at some point, and that partially, I think that's a partial problem with bringing in a GM midway through a rebuild process already.
Right.
Because this guy feels like he needs to rebuild as well, and in a way, they're not really in the rebuild process, and they are, but they've already done a lot of that groundwork, and they really need to do that second phase now, like the phase that Edmonton didn't do for years. The phase I worry about Toronto doing, that phase of like, okay, you're going to bring in guys now that we have enough prospects, we got to bring, like you're saying, we got to bring in players who are going to help those prospects win, or we're just going to continually be the youngest team in the NHL that can't win, which doesn't make any sense, right? So I think I really think that's what they're at risk at, and it comes from the fact that Maloney was already taking them on a really good path, and this guy's been a great. I mean, this trade, the Hansel trade, I mean, it is unbelievable. Like what he got for the Hansel is incredible. Let's not make a mistake.
All the unknown, no, he got all the unknown.
But the thing is, with these deals, is who are they dealing with? They're dealing with teams that are in playoff contention. So those teams don't want to give up players.
Yeah, but again, I go back to Minnesota. They have too many defensemen. They will be losing a defenseman in the expansion draft or trading one before it. I would have held their feet to the fire and gotten that defenseman, or at least someone.
When do you not want to give up a defenseman? When you're going into the playoffs.
Tell you what, Mike, give me your best AHL defenseman. I don't care. Give me
somebody who's just a little bit further along, like
Chuck Fletcher was interviewed on Hockey Central earlier this morning. He says, "Well, we have 9 defensemen, and we're probably going to, said to the effect, we're probably going to need all of them to make a run through the playoffs." And that teams need that depth. They're not going to give up a defenseman when they're going for a Stanley Cup. Now, maybe there's sort of a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge here after the season where Arizona would be the home for a guy like Folin or Mike Riley or somebody like that.
Here's the part that I challenged, Dick. Basically, if I didn't misread this, after they traded Michael Stone, they said, we have a lot of young defensemen here. That's why we did it.
Right.
Their defense is not going to be that much better next year.
No, it's not at all. And
Michael Stone's 26.
Now, I mean, right. He is in that perfect age that they could have used. I mean, he's that age that they could have used, and I totally agree with you. I really feel like there's no sense of this. Like the guys that they just got from Minnesota are going to be factors for them in 2020.
Right.
This the way Arizona is operating right now Getting assets for Stone, getting assets for Hansel, I have no problem with. But the thing is, I do agree with Russ. I would have reservations if this is just perpetual, if they just keep doing this over and over. They at some point have to start accumulating assets. If they turn these draft picks into players, then it makes a bit of sense.
Well, that's the thing, right? And you're right about that.
Yeah, I used the example before about the Leafs and trading 2 draft picks for Frederik Andersen. If they don't do that, then what the hell's the point? Then friggin' move the team to Seattle, because if you're not going to ever put the team together, what the hell's the point?
Well, and here's the thing. So back to the thinking, like, okay, we think Anthony Duclair is going to get traded.
Yes.
He's 21. They feel like they can't use him. They're not using him. And so if I don't get somebody back that's really useful that I can put in my lineup, why am I trading Anthony Duclair? Like, at some point, I do have to question all these players that they don't feel like are in their plans that they trade.
Right. I agree.
They're not 35 years old. Shane Doan is. I get it.
Yeah, and of course they're gonna move out other players too. It seems like they're gonna, if they can get anything for Verbata. I mean, the price for Verbata they're calling right now is ridiculous. I mean it's bigger than that for Hansel, which is crazy.
We can't say that anymore because, I understand why Minnesota did it, but Chaika got the return that he was looking for Hansel. He got
Oh no, he got everything and more. I think I can't believe another second round conditional pick was thrown on top of that. I can't believe. I mean, I would have been if they had told me that it was a second and a conditional second only, I would have been like, wow, that's pretty good. I mean, because really what he's doing is he's trading Minnesota what could be their 3rd or 4th line center.
Right.
Like, I mean, the one thing that
they throw in Ryan White, right?
Yeah, right.
Why wouldn't they re-sign a guy like Ryan White? They need a guy like that.
Right.
But they might, Russ. They might.
Yeah, but you keep saying that. Tell me a guy that's left there that has come back other than Vermette, because Vermette had no market for himself. That's why.
He won a Stanley Cup.
But he had no market. Nobody wanted him.
Yeah, I mean, Verbata's gone back there too, but
not many. Not many.
I mean, and it is a great. Right now though, why would you go back to a team that just doesn't have any desire to win? Like, they're really a team that just wants to. Now, all that being said, I will throw out this that I heard that Marc-Andre Fleury is their target. All right.
Okay.
And and of course it comes out today that Marc-Andre Fleury is, has not technically officially told anybody that he's asked for a trade, but he has asked for a trade.
Wait. I'm sorry. Can you say that again? Because my ears were ringing true, and I just wanted to make sure I was hearing what I was hearing.
That Marc-Andre Fleury has asked to be traded?
Yes. Thank you. Okay.
Yes.
Well, because again, early in the year, I thought there was a chance one of these guys would be traded, even Murray. And now lately it had seemed that it was going to be Fleury. But everybody kept telling me Fleury's a good guy. He's going to roll with this. And then I was playing that other side where he is a good guy, but he's going to want to win at some point.
Yeah, I never really thought it was the good guy part of it. I just thought, that he wanted to stay in Pittsburgh, bench and maybe wait this out and hope and maybe have Murray be the one to be traded. I think that could have played into it.
And to be honest, I think Rutherford played it wrong when he said, well, if Mark wants to be along for the ride, we're not going to trade him. Otherwise, I guess we'll have to trade him, right? That was close to what his quote was.
Yeah.
And Fleury doesn't want to be along for the ride.
No. As do few hockey players. I mean, he just did that. Like he's already done the ride. He did the ride last year,
Right.
So.
I mean, Rutherford was rather cryptic when he was interviewed last week. He basically said, well, Marc-Andre Fleury's been a good teammate. And as long as he continues to be a good teammate, then we have no problems.
Right.
But that's the thing. It's like,
that's a weird thing to say, though.
It is a weird thing to say. I'm telling you, he's played this wrong.
But that's basically
that's like the thing about that. Like if you said that about any employee, you've been a good employee, and as long as you continue to be a good employee, we'll have no problem.
Yeah, but that good employee. But in this instance, Zach, that good employee is being paid $5.5 million. Now, okay, I know that no matter what these players make, they want to play, and I get that, but it's not like he's being abused here or being misused.
No, but he's a #1 goalie. He knows it. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's been to 2 cups on his own. He has every right to want to play. And I think when Rutherford,
not the most
to be honest, I'm going to be honest. I think when Rutherford came out with that quote, I think it sped up this process. I do.
And maybe
Yeah,
that
might
was
have, because it could be read in a lot of different ways. And
maybe that was his intent.
one thing you can tell, I know about Fleury and his agent Walsh, is they will read it in the most pessimistic way they can, because they are nervous. I mean, Fleury. Remember the history of Fleury's contract and the craziness about the beginning when he could only play a certain amount of games and all that stuff that came out then, and then the yellow pads and whether they were good. A whole bunch of like crazy things that happened. And Marc-Andre Fleury then goes on to the whole issue of the craziness of the guy can't win the playoffs and everything. So now we hear possibly we've heard Calgary's out there still is a good possibility. Dallas is possible. So I don't think Dallas.
If the Coyotes were to get Marc-Andre Fleury, what does he make? 5.5?
Yes.
Yeah.
So are you trying to tell me that the Coyotes would pay $12 million for goalies, or would they buy out Mike Smith?
They would buy out Mike Smith.
Mike Smith has another 2 years.
Right, another 2 years
at $5.66 million.
They would buy him out because they see Fleury as a better goalie than Mike Smith. And
okay, so let's say Marc-Andre Fleury goes there. How much better with the rookies they have? And let's say they pick up
Mike Smith too. That's the other thing.
Fleury actually makes more. He makes $5.75.
Okay. Let's say they get Fleury. Let's say Clayton Keller comes up. Let's say they pick up, and let's say even Strom's ready. Let's say they pick up another free agent. I still don't know if that makes them a playoff team.
Yeah.
Fleury's got to know that.
And honestly, I mean, to go against the current here, Mike Smith hasn't been the problem in Arizona. He actually had a pretty decent year this year.
No, it's not. I know he's never been the problem. I mean, he's really never been the problem, right? But I also think that he actually does have a little bit of trade value, believe it or not.
I agree, he does. No,
I think that they could move Mike Smith, and they could, I've heard Philly could take Mike Smith.
They're gonna have to retain a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard Philly with Mike Smith too. I know you mentioned.
Yeah, I know. A friend mentioned it to me, and I thought there was some sense in that.
Yeah.
Well, it makes more sense for some teams to go out and get Mike Smith for 2 years than to sign Ben Bishop for 5 or 6.
Right.
But let's say the one thing I want to throw in about the Ben Bishop trade is the fact that it does tell you that LA is going to do something else. Like this is not the end of the LA's movement right now. This is.
No, I agree with that. But can I tell you that for Ben Bishop to want to go, since he had a limited no trade to LA, he had to be assured a certain amount of playing time, which tells me that Jonathan Quick is not 100%, and the Kings know it.
Or he's sitting there and saying, you know what? Remember Bishop and Quick, they know each other really well too.
Sure.
I mean, and he may have. When you're going to be a UFA, you're going to a team that could do well in the playoffs, has them all in the playoffs. That's another thing you're thinking about. You're thinking about keeping playing, and you're thinking about, you're right. He could, and Quick is one small injury away from him being the goalie on that team. So
and I think that's why he went there.
Yeah, I do too. And apparently, there weren't many other options. That's what's being said. I don't completely buy.
I don't completely buy that either.
Because I talked to enough people who I know had interest in him. I think Yzerman did not want to trade him to certain teams.
Well, according to John Shannon, he said that that the Kings did well to get Bishop, not in terms of the price that they paid, but also to keep him away from another Pacific Division team. And I can only surmise from that, based on the fact that John Gibson's hurt right now, that other team would have been the Ducks.
Right.
And can I think
it's American goalie hour here on Hockey Buzz, isn't it?
It is. Can we? Well, Mike Richter won't be traded. I know that.
But Ryan Miller might.
Tom Barrasso.
Yeah. Right. No, but if we put X and Y together now, it would seem like Ben Bishop was offered up for Kevin Shattenkirk.
Oh, I thank you.
It does seem like that was the deal, and when Shattenkirk turned down the extension,
I think it was more than just.
It was not just.
No, but they were the big proponents.
Yeah. No, there was a bigger proponent than that, and that brings me to my next point, which Jonathan Drouin was in that deal. All right, okay. And now this is of course, and there was another player coming from St. Louis too, which I haven't been tied down. But Jonathan Drouin was in that deal, and this is like what I wrote this morning about the Tampa flu, right? Where Jonathan Drouin missed a practice last week, right before this trade was turned down. Bishop missed a practice yesterday because of a flu. So it's really either they're really on Yzerman just really hates people when they get sick and immediately wants to trade them, or something else is going on.
Well, I will tell you this. I don't know who's on your list for Jonathan Drouin, but I can tell you the Rangers have always had interest in him.
Yeah, I mean, there are. It's pretty much as quickly as I can talk to people is who's on my list.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants to talk to Drouin. Everybody wants to get in on Drouin. The Rangers are I haven't talked to anybody yet from the Rangers. I'm sure they will be added. I know two teams that immediately last night that I found out about were Philly and Nashville. We know Philly tried very hard last year at the draft to get Drouin. At the trade deadline a year ago.
Yes.
And by the way, another trade deadline with Jonathan Drouin. It's like, woohoo!
But the thing is, last year his value was much lower than it is now.
Oh yeah, no question. But
after a good playoff and a pretty solid season,
yep,
his value is where Tampa probably wants it to be.
Yep.
But he's not happy about the fact that he feels like and they're not telling him officially, but he feels like he was in the Shattenkirk deal. That's what I was told.
The thing you have to look at, though, when it comes to Tampa and when it comes to Drouin is, Drouin's been on his entry-level contract. Now it comes down to brass tacks because they have to pay him. They have to pay him significant money. They may be able to get him on a bridge deal, but based on what's been going on over the last couple of years, do you think Drouin's going to do them any favors? He's going to want to get paid. And if he wants to get paid, that doesn't mean 2-year bridge deal. That probably means a 5 or 6 year contract. And they have to sign Palat and they have to sign Johnson. So I think, maybe not now, but maybe in the summer, Yzerman's got to do something.
Yeah. I'm not. Hold on 1 second. Just got a text from somebody on this one.
Yeah, I think Yzerman has done the right thing, and we knew he would not be able to pay all of his great players. And this is a cautionary tale to Coyotes fans where eventually they're going to be up against this too.
Well, let's just extrapolate from, because we talked about like the team in the Pacific that might have been interested in Bishop. Let's look at
Let me 1 second. I'm sorry. Go back to this for a second. Apologize.
Okay. Go ahead.
Apologize for the. So we're on Drouin. Colorado is also in on Drouin. Now, that might be a big piece of the puzzle of everything that's going on right now because, like I wrote this morning, there's a lot of people who believe that like Sakic has asked for the world, and apparently, when you ask for the world, like you don't think anyone's going to do it, right? And the idea is just to see a lot of teams, and this was a Rick Nash trick before with Columbus, is you ask for so much that you see how far people are willing to go, right? And you don't expect them to actually go as far as you're asking because that would be absurd. But two teams did. This is what I was told. And the Islanders and Montreal went as far as they were asking for Duchesne. And now that has started this crazy sort of holding pattern, which has frustrated both of those teams. And so now jump into the fact that, okay, Drouin has not been traded to St. Louis, and Colorado suddenly becomes a factor in Drouin. If there's a reason, it feels like there's another reason that they want Drouin out of there. This is what it feels like. I am not saying that I have any. It's just I've seen this pattern before with this kind of thing, and it feels odd to me. It just because he is so talented. I mean, when you talk to people about Drouin, the first thing they say is, "Oh man, that guy's a special player." Right away, you'll hear that immediately. So why, why?
Well, there's only so many special players you could have signed to long-term deals.
Right. I think that has to do with it.
And let's remember why Drouin was a problem last year, because he wasn't a fit with the coach, because he didn't get along with the coach. Now they've made a bridge. They've accepted something, and they've made a compromise, and Drouin is playing. He's getting the top 6 ice time, and he's playing well, and he makes it possible for Tampa Bay to get value back. But that, maybe that animosity is still there, and that's the reason why they're not going to pay him.
I think underneath it is. And sometimes, a lot of times we've seen that players who ask for trades, that never really quite goes away. Like it does to a degree, but in this case, it's not suddenly like he is. Because remember, it was like he asked for a trade, and then a couple weeks later, he was the greatest thing since sliced bread when he came back and was scoring like crazy.
But look at it from the other side here. I'm sure Colorado wants Drouin. You even referenced it in your blog about McKinnon and Drouin together.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, look at it from the Tampa point. What do they want back from Colorado? I don't think that they want Matt Duchene or Landeskog, because
I heard Landeskog is the person they want. But then I heard I've heard both. But my instincts are Landeskog, and I wrote in my blog Duchene because But and just this text I just got now, I feel like
wait a minute. I mean, I'm going to just throw this out there. I mean, because they know they can't sign Duran, it's not guaranteed Colorado has to give up Duchesne or Landeskog. Maybe it's Rantanen.
No, well, how about this?
Duran's got way too much value.
I mean, you could give Rantanen a pick. I mean, it's possible.
There's a lot of, like you said, there's 29 teams that'll give you a lot for Duran. Now, unless, sometimes we do see these things happen suddenly and quickly where they just, like, they've been frustrated. They tried to trade to St. Louis. Now they get something from Colorado, and then this is when we see the rest of the team saying, why the hell wasn't I called? When did that happen recently? It just happened not too long ago. I remember the exact thing happening.
Take, for example, the deal that we know was probably offered between St. Louis and Tampa, where it was Duran and maybe Bishop for Shattenkirk. They're looking for a defenseman. We know they're looking for a defenseman. Coburn, Garrison, they're not playing. They've got two really good defensemen in Strawman and Hedman, and after that, they need defense. So if you're putting Colorado and you're putting defense, does that mean Tyson Barrie? Does that mean Eric Johnson? I don't think either one of them gets it done.
I think it could be Eric Johnson and Rantanen. And again, I'll go back to Rantanen because he's 6'3", he's over 200 pounds, he's 20 years old, he's got 30 points in the AHL. He's just looking for his chance to play in the NHL again. You put him with the right line mates, this guy could be magic. And Tampa doesn't have anybody like him, a big winger like him. They don't. Not one, they just don't.
No, it's true. I do agree with you. But it is fascinating. The Duran thing, I think, has really opened up stuff in a way. Yeah. And maybe also confused things in a way, because what happens is we had this very obvious Duchesne, because here's the thing, even if it's not Duchesne, right, that they're going after, even if it's Landeskog, Sakic's not going to trade both of them. So it's like, so if Landeskog is the guy suddenly that, and say it's Landeskog, or, my last source says he believes it's Landeskog. So say it's Landeskog. This guy would know because he's definitely knows what's going on with Tampa usually.
Okay.
I know that was kind of, he knows what's going on. He definitely knows what's going on with Tampa usually. It's a pretty funny thing to say. But anyway, no, say it's Landeskog. So now Duchesne comes off the table. Now Montreal and the Islanders are sitting there twiddling their thumbs. Like, what the heck? That's where we're at.
Montreal, I mean, the first thing I thought about after the Hansel deal was announced yesterday was Montreal, because, I mean, Mark Bergevin's got to be pulling his hair out, because Hansel was reportedly, by a number of people, the guy that Montreal was looking for in terms of the strength up the middle. And
they thought that asking price was absurd.
Right, and it was, but somebody paid it. But now, what are the options?
But it doesn't matter. I kept trying to tell you guys, Bergevin does not pay those premium demands. He does not.
Right. But
it doesn't matter.
Okay. He may not.
Now Vanek is in play for Montreal. This is like that. Hansel was their backup plan for Duchesne. Now Vanek's their backup plan for Duchesne. That's
really going to help him up the middle. I mean, I don't know. I looked at that team that played against Toronto on Saturday, and you've got Pacioretty, who's playing wonderfully. You got Price, who played great against the Leafs. Galchenyuk scored a goal, and there's not much else.
I'm going to tell you, I agree with you. But, I'm going to go back. After looking at the kind of year Landeskog is having and the little bit of a tail off that he's starting to show, because he is a guy that plays aggressive, even though he's only 24, I would rather have Rantanen than Landeskog. That's just me, but I would.
Yeah.
And not disputing what your source said, but I would be shocked if they trade Duran and it's not for a defenseman. I really would.
That's where I could see Eric Johnson being in it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they. I mean, Tyson Barrie is one of those guys that he reminds me of.
Tyson Barrie is a poor man Shattenkirk in the sense that he's an offensive defenseman.
He's like Jason Garrison. I mean, they already got rid of Jason Garrison once. Like, I don't think they.
I also think who Tyson Barrie reminds me of, and you guys are going to laugh at this but it reminds me of when the first time I saw him, he reminded me of Duncan Keith. Right now, he's not Duncan Keith level at all, of course, but I think that in a similar way to, like, I went back and read my story. I should post it that I wrote when I went to Chicago. When I watched them, the team was in disarray, and I talked about it recently. They were disarray, and they were firing their coach. And this was way back when. This was the low point before Chicago's huge run that they had. Right. And Duncan Keith was out there at the end of the morning skating around with a couple other people as a healthy scratch again, and he was a kid, And I'm sitting there, and I'm with the other writers from Chicago. I'm saying, why the hell is this kid not playing? His talent, crazy speed, crazy shot. he looks like a superstar. They're like, oh yeah, they just don't like him. They don't think he can't play any defense. He's all offensive. He's just a one-dimensional player.
Right.
I'll never forget that. Like, to see where Duncan Keith now is on one of the top 100 players of all time according to the NHL. So
yeah, but you know what? I'm going to default back to Garrison because even though he's bigger, I mean, clearly I'm not saying it because they look like each other because Garrison's 6'2". But Garrison, most of his years, he would have around 33 points. And when Tampa just got him their first year, it was 30 points. And Barry's at 26, but he hasn't played a full season. So maybe he'd get 40 points. But they had those kinds of guys. They had guys who could actually play defense. I don't think Tyson Barrie helps their cause because they already have enough offensive production on their power play. They need people who could play defense. Eric Johnson can play defense.
Yeah. Now, after the weekend, you have to say that right now, you have to add the Buffalo Sabres into the sellers market.
Oh yeah.
They lost to Colorado and to Arizona in regulation. Tim Murray, I hope you signed up for the long distance plan because.
Well, and here's a good point, Mike, and you'll be able to remember this, and you're in the market. If the Arizona Coyotes fans are happy compiling picks, a couple of years ago, nobody had more picks than the Sabres. Nobody.
Right, and then the funny thing, Russ, is that some of those picks. I mean, you start to see I by no means am a Sabres fan, but I look at their organization and guys like Carrier, Baptiste, Justin Bailey have come up, have started to play well. There's, I think that those young players are going to get a lot of chances over the next couple of years. That's reason for optimism. We know that Eichel is good. Where they have a problem is they need defense. They need defense big time. Leonard has played well recently. There's not a complete team, and I think
that's my point. Buffalo had all those draft picks, and it was probably 3 or 4 years ago where they were loaded.
Yeah,
and they're still not a complete team today.
Right, but those picks they're in their third, second.
No, I get it, but that's the cycle.
Right, they're just starting to come around.
Arizona's going to be caught in that cycle. Buffalo's ahead of them in that cycle.
Right, and where I think that the Sabres, I mean, and I don't know if you've heard anything, but Evander Kane, I mean, he's one of the hottest players in the league. Will they make that move now? Do other teams that missed out on guys like Hansel or that might miss out or don't think that Colorado is going to jump at Duchesne or move Duchesne or Landeskog, do they kick tires on Evander Kane and say, okay, here's a guy that we think or know that Buffalo is going to move? I don't know, but I think Murray is in that position now. Now he knows that he's probably not going to make the playoffs since they're, I think, seven points out of a playoff spot. But they really have to make their. Is that the commissioner?
Yeah. For that, 1 second, hold on.
Okay.
So we don't know. That could be Eck's bookie. Like we don't know who's tied into that line. Like he said, it's important to Eck. It could be his hair. It could be his hairstylist. It could be his bookie. It could be the pizza guy. Those are all important to Eck.
I take pepperoni, mushroom, black olive, and onion.
I'm going to give you the team that I'm most interested to see what they're going to do, and that's the Winnipeg Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're on the fringe of being out of it. They're on the fringe of being in it. Like, they have guys they could deal.
Yeah, and I think, the thing is, okay, they have 62 points. The second wild card is 67, so they're 5 points behind the Blues. The Blues have paid.
Sorry.
The Blues
dry cleaner. That could be Eck's dry cleaner right now.
No ticky, no washy. The Blues have played 61 games. The Jets have played 63. So they're 5 points behind them, and they played 2 more games. They're over. So that to me that means Drew Stafford. I think he's going to get dealt. Maybe one of their defensemen if they
Postma, right? I mean,
something like that. I mean, a depth guy. If there's a team that needs a backup or like a secondary goaltender, maybe Pavlik is an answer if they eat salary on that. I mean, those make sense. But Buffalo, you're talking Kulikov, you're talking Franzen, you're talking apparently Gianta doesn't want to be traded, but they, who knows. Zemgus Girgensons is an RFA. Kane. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 guys with the Sabres that could be on the move. And
I think it's 4 or 5 with this team too, though. I'm going to go Postma. I'm going to go Tobias Enstrom. I'm going to go.
Enstrom's been hurt. Enstrom's been hurt, so
Yeah, but it doesn't matter if he can come back. I'm going to go Drew Stafford, and I'm going to go Mark Stewart.
yeah, and possibly Pavlik.
Here's a little breaking stuff, perhaps.
Okay.
That call was about the rumor circulating in Montreal that Sergachev is involved in this deal.
Oh boy,
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
I agree with you completely, and it seems ridiculous. And but that was 2 calls in a row. Both those calls were the same.
Are you sure that wasn't your pizza man? Because I told Mike.
No, my pizza man does not have the special number.
No, but we don't know that. See, I think your bookie has it. I think your pizza man has it, and I think your hairstylist, because those are all people that are important to you.
Tell them no anchovies, please. But
jerks.
But honestly, if Bergevin is prepared, and I agree with Russ, I agree with you. I'm not convinced that they're prepared to give up on Sergachev, and a deal.
Right?
If that's the case,
here's what's happening.
This is going to be annoying on Wednesday. I'll tell you that right now.
But here's the thing: his source is listening to us, and he keeps calling him back, saying, "No, these guys are wrong."
No, he keeps saying Mike is a jerk. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. No, but I'm telling you right now, if they're prepared to trade Sergachev, then panic has set in the streets of Montreal.
Yes,
that was another. That was not a source saying that, Russ.
That is proof. That is proof positive that blood is running in the streets of Montreal right now.
Okay, here's all I have to do is say one word or two names, Ryan McDonough, and if you trade Sergachev, you basically will be recreating history.
I'm not buying into it.
Bad history.
Yeah,
I think this could be a feeler type thing. This might be Montreal trying to find out if Duchesne actually is available. I wouldn't be shocked if they're like, say, well, what if we put Scrivacha,
Well,
right. I think Montreal's at the point that they're not desperate. They're not desperate. I mean, I've talked to people up there. They're not desperate. They want it. They obviously
should be desperate.
Well, no.
Look, to be fair, they can't trade Noah Juleson. He's had too many injuries in the last 2 years. Yeah. So I could see why it would be Sergachev, because they probably don't want to trade below. So he's the only other defenseman that I could see somebody wanting. I get that.
Right. They're definitely working hard on the Duchesne trade. That's what I keep hearing.
I think realistically we have about 8 to 10 sellers now. I think it's Colorado, Arizona, Vancouver, Dallas, and possibly Winnipeg, and in the East, Carolina, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Detroit, Buffalo, Tampa. I think that those are your sellers.
Yeah, I would say it's probably right. Although,
Eck, I identified 5 players that could be dealt on Winnipeg.
Yeah,
don't you think they're going to deal somebody?
Yeah. You know what's the funny thing is, who's the guy? One of them is was it Drew Stafford, probably, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I checked into that, and this Drew Stafford is the most falsely said to be wanted player in the league on rumors. I don't know what it is. I mean, not that people dislike Drew Stafford, but he has like a PR system to create buzz for trade rumors. I'm just saying, I don't think. I mean, this has been going on for years. Every time, so I have a real hard time. Like, it's very much the crying wolf scenario with me with Drew Stafford. Like, I don't. I think he's a talented player, and I think he's shown that he's a good player when he goes to a new team. He has like a nice burst when he gets there, but I'm not buying that one completely.
We're hearing the other players: Mark Stewart, Paul Postma, Enstrom, and Pavlik.
Yeah, and Enstrom, I think, is of those is the one I've heard the most about.
But he's had injury problems too.
He has, but
if he can stay injury free long enough, he'll run somebody's power play.
Yeah, Drew Stafford, it's only 39 games, I think it was 12 points in 39 games. Yeah, 4 goals and 8 assists, and he's making over $4 million. So this is a guy you probably get for a 4th-round pick if Winnipeg eats half the salary. Otherwise, I don't think anybody's going to be interested.
Now, here's something you'll like, Mike, real quick, I was told by somebody who was traveling with the Maple Leafs, right, and they just they're having a practice right now. It's going on right now as we speak. They landed in California,
San Jose, yeah.
And Babcock just went nuts on them in practice, screaming at the top of his lungs. saying, you guys are terrible. If we play this way, we'll never make the playoffs. He flipped out on them in true Babcockian ways. To the point where it was just kind of encouraging. Like for the first time, the person who said to me, "Is this the first time that Mike Babcock has actually been coaching the Maple Leafs in his mind? Where he really saw this is the Mike Babcock who sees this team now as a playoff team in his head and is not letting off the gas. Like he's really gone."
I can see.
We always said that competitive spirit will eventually come through,
and this is it.
Finally hit him. I think that Montreal game was very eye opening for Babcock. That's
well, I'm not so sure. I mean, because you got to remember they were playing without Bozak and without Marner, two of their top six.
And they almost beat the Canadiens. They should have beat the Canadiens.
But the Canadiens
are a desperate team playing at not at home. It's in Toronto, right? But they're a desperate team. It goes to overtime. I mean, essentially, if Anderson doesn't make a bonehead play in overtime, I think that game, who knows what happens, right?
Well, actually, the funny thing is that it sort of illustrated even more their need for more depth at center. Because Bozak was out and they had put out Zach Hyman in overtime, and Andrew Shaw was the one who beat him to the puck in a 3-on-3.
I'll give you the analogy for Babcock. This is a NASCAR race. He's going into those last couple of laps. The pit's calling him in, and he's going to just ride it out and see if he can get every little bit of gas and hope he doesn't run out of gas before he hits the finish line. I think that's what he's just trying to get every last bit of juice out of these guys.
Right, but the problem is, and to use your analogy, they're not going to go into the pits. They're not going to go into the pit to get more gas. Lou Lamoriello came out on Sunday and basically said, the team that you got is the team that you got. We're going to give the kids.
And we always believe GMs, as we said.
I'm not saying that, but right now, Russ, unless I honestly, I go back and I'll be completely wrong. I don't think that they're going to go for a rental, but I still think, and especially now after the weekend and seeing the ridiculous prices that are out there, and the fact that Alexei Marchenko in a couple games played pretty well for the Leafs, that there's still a possibility that they trade a guy like Roman Polak for a draft pick because it wouldn't adversely affect the team, and they would get an asset for him. So now there was talk on the weekend, and I love how these rumors are out there.
You know who this is.
Go ahead. I'll just go on a diatribe. On the weekend, Nick Kypreos from Sportsnet reported that the Leafs are making inquiries on Riley Sheehan, the forward from the Detroit Red Wings. Riley Sheehan is making over $2 million. He has no goals and 9 assists in 58 games. He's leading in a negative sense the Red Wings in plus minus.
Yeah.
So it would be the depth center that Babcock has been asking for, but the Kypreos reported that the price on Sheehan was a first-round pick. The only way that you're getting a first-round pick out of Toronto for Riley Sheehan is if Lou Lamoriello has been lobotomized over the weekend.
You wouldn't get a first-round pick for Ed Sheeran, and he's a million album-selling guy.
Ed Sheeran's not even good enough for a first-round pick. Let's be real.
The ginger, forget that.
No, so yeah, that was not my buddy who I thought was calling the second Mike went into this rant, but I thought that's anyway.
Talking about again, yeah.
No. Anyway, I'm encouraged. I mean, if I'm a Leafs fan, I'm psyched about the fact that he went nuts. Anyway.
I don't think that's
only if you're in the minority and you're one of those silly Leaf fans that want to win.
No.
Yes.
Russ, Leaf fans want this team to make the playoffs. Leaf fans want this team to be successful. They're very happy that this team has shown all the signs that that they have, all the positive signs that they have so far. But I think what Lamoriello is sending out in terms of a signal here with what he said over the weekend is the fact that we're not going to mortgage the future for short-term assets. We want to see what these kids are going to do, and if we make the playoffs and that's what we want to do, great. And if we don't,
all right, I'm going to give you a test right here.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you I'm a genie and I can grant you this wish. It's a guarantee. Mm-hmm. If you trade in this trading deadline a second and third round pick, I can guarantee you will make the playoffs. Will you do it?
Well, let me ask one question.
No, there's no questions.
If they don't trade a second and third round pick, do they not make the playoffs guaranteed?
No, but I can guarantee you'll make
I'm
it.
not trading a second and third round pick because I think I can make the playoffs without trading those picks.
You're crazy.
No,
Crazy.
no,
We just talked about Phoenix. Well, I'm going to call them Arizona. I'm sorry I keep calling them.
I do it by accident. Sometimes.
I wrote in my new blog the team formerly known as Phoenix. Can I just say that? No.
Okay, but no.
Artist formerly known as Prince.
It's the Phoenix Coyotes. Right.
Mike, you're clearly crazy. That's all I could say.
Let's move off the Leafs. Okay, so let's talk about Evander Kane for a second.
Okay.
Because that was the last call I got there.
Okay.
And
it was Evander Kane?
No, it was about Evander Kane. There's a definite you were telling me, Mike, before that you really feel like people in Buffalo want Evander Kane traded.
I think I'm
going to do a poll about this, and I think that you're completely wrong.
No, I think that the fans. First of all, I think the organization is not going to sign him to a long-term extension. That's one. Two, I think the fans are savvy in Buffalo, and they realize that if his value is at its highest right now, and they're not going to sign him after next year, then they would say, if we can get a defenseman that we need down in the future, yes, trade him.
All right,
I think that's the viewpoint.
This is a 3-horse race between it's a 3-horse race right now in my opinion between 2-horse race between Montreal and Los Angeles. The Wild were in on this as well, but I now have heard the Wild aren't in on it because of the trade they made. So this you really have to put some focus on Los Angeles now because of what they've done. Because of the fact that they now are not a guarantee to make the playoffs, and if they make this trade for Bishop and don't make the playoffs, then that's a huge problem, right? So they have to. They have really put the pressure on them to make playoffs. They will trade futures right now to get better.
Well, Russ, let me ask you this question, because I think this kind of move would sort of be counterproductive. You've got Toffoli and Pearson up for RFA at the end of this year. And I don't know how LA pays both of them.
I know how they're gonna have to move Gaborik.
Right, and I don't see anybody taking Gaborik unless there's a guarantee that Gaborik is going to visit Robidas Island with.
No, but there's a possibility that they could trade him to Vegas and he would sell jerseys.
Yeah. I'm skeptical about that. Unless
you have every right to be skeptical about it, but I'm sure the call will be made.
Yes, but the question is if it's LA and if it's Kane going to LA, unless they're trading Kempe.
Well, then we'll have to trade Kempe.
Right, unless they're trading Kempe or Gravel or one of their other.
Gravel, and I don't even think they could trade him anymore.
No, because they need him.
They need him. They just they traded Gilbert. Like they just only have so many defensemen there.
Yeah, Ledoux. They have Ledoux. But what I'm saying is they have to give up something to get Kane, and I don't think that they can pay Toffoli and Pearson next year. So would they trade one of those guys to get Kane? And to me, it'd be counterproductive because you need those guys and Kane to maybe have a run in the playoffs.
They will figure their way out of this, whether they buy out Gaborik, whether they, they'll figure their way out of this. I don't think they're going to lose either one of those guys.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean,
will they trade a first-round pick this year and a first-round pick next year? They might.
Right. And if it's Montreal, then I think we're talking Juleson. I don't think you're talking Sergachev.
Right. I agree with that.
It's an interesting one that I was just told that the Red Wings are in on Anthony Duclair, which is we tend to think about these teams that aren't in the playoffs, as not being buyers, and sometimes we miss these kind of things.
No, and look, I could see it because they need offense. They see a guy that's toiling in the minors who could play at the NHL level. It makes full sense. You put Anthony Duclair with Dylan Larkin, you've got an awfully fast, talented combination there.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So I'm gonna have to look into this more. But that's, I know Ottawa's been in now. Ottawa. Should we talk about the signing today?
Sure. Yeah, the Chris DiDomenico signing, former Maple Leaf draft pick, was playing in the Swiss League for I think 4 years. Well known by Guy Boucher and Mark Crawford because both of them were coaching in the Swiss League. It sounds like just like a depth signing. I mean, he's 28 years old, so he's a formed player. You know, he probably could be a role player. I mean, I don't think it's a big impact thing, but I think it's if you can sign him for nothing rather than trade a draft pick, why not? And if they think he can do a job, then I think it's a smart move.
Here's the thing. I was having a high-level discussion with Bill Meltzer in the car yesterday, and I'll reveal this. I forget who the player was that got picked up the day before who wasn't in the NHL and just got a contract. It wasn't DiDomenico, but it was somebody else. This may be the way some teams do not make a trade but get that extra player.
Right.
Yeah.
I forgot who it was. They picked him up and they immediately sent him through to the minors. Who was that?
Yeah, I'm talking about.
Hold on, I'll get it.
This is not. This is done. This has happened in other years that we've seen this happen.
Oh, Ryan Carter.
Ryan Carter, and he has NHL experience.
Yes.
I mean, Stanley Cup experience.
But I think it's really interesting that that this guy was coached by. She just got another text by the Senators coach. Sorry, Boucher was coaching at the Spengler Cup.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he didn't coach him in the Swiss League, but he saw him in the Swiss League, so he
was
knows.
a Spengler Cup coach for him.
I don't even care about that part. I think this is a way for teams that don't have a lot of money to spend or have a budget to add a player, and they're doing it now. They're scouring the earth to try and get players like this. Ryan Carter is not a bad guy to bring in.
Or what, and I don't know if this is going to end up panning out because he might be continuing in the KHL through their playoffs. But there was a draft pick for, and we talked about this last week, Russ. I think it's Shalunov, the defenseman.
Yeah, Maxim Shalunov. Yeah,
prospect for Chicago, who was a draft pick of theirs, I think in 2011. Once the KHL season ends, they could sign him. And I don't know if that's.
He's a good player, man. He's not a defenseman. He's a winger. And
no, I know. He's right. I was saying.
Yeah, he's got a lot of scoring potential. He's fast. He's got a great shot. He is 6'3", so he's got the size.
Yeah.
If they could do that, that's a hell of a pickup for them.
Yeah.
But the last thing, Thomas Yurko, who has little or no offense, got a third-round pick.
I would disagree with you on the sense that.
No, I'm just saying what he did this year. I'm not saying he doesn't have talent. I'm just saying he has done nothing this year, and he got a third-round pick. To me, that tells teams out there that have players that they might be interested in selling, you can get a good return because
only if that player makes like no money. That's why Yurko got what he got.
Yes, he's a very low salary. Correct.
That's why Chicago was in on ease too. Like the fact is that Chicago has no money, and the funny thing about Chicago is this is the cockiest I've heard them in a while, and that's saying something for Chicago. Like they basically are saying we're good. We don't need to pick up anybody, which is never what you hear from Chicago.
But it's not like they can do a lot either, though.
I know, but they're taking that in different. I just heard that Mitch Marner had a great practice too, Mike. Just
Yeah, so he'll probably be. Well, I mean, talk about the hilarity. I mean, Mike Babcock. It basically sounds like he's going to war with the Leafs medical staff because he's like, Mitch wants to be in the game. I want him to be in the game, but luckily the decision's not ours because he would be in the game already if it was up to us. So basically, the medical staff is keeping him out. He's a 19-year-old kid. You don't want him playing hurt.
I do want to put a name out there. I'm not an agent for this guy, but Jan Holovic is 40, and he did play a game this year in the Czech Elite League. Maybe someone will sign him.
Yeah. Right. I mean, why not?
Okay.
All right. We've got. You never can tell with Russ. let's just go there. All right. I'm gonna keep working, obviously. And we'll all be back. I will be back again tomorrow. And then, of course, coming up in 2 days, we have the big trade deadline show. And Russ,
I can't. You know why? Because there's a game that night.
I know.
Well, the problem is somebody has to take care of the dogs before the game.
Oh, who's playing that night?
It's the Leafs are in town.
For the Rangers, right?
No, for the Flyers.
No, that's not true. Is it?
The Leafs are on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Wait, it's somebody. They have a game Thursday.
There's only 2 games on Wednesday night.
Oh, it's Wednesday. I thought it was Thursday. Sorry.
No.
Okay.
Now you're stuck. Got
Now
to
you're available.
Now I'm. Yeah, I might be able to
You don't
actually.
have to come. I'm just offering it to you.
Okay.
Wow.
I appreciate it.
I understand Jillian is going to be coming here. Jillian's going to be part of our trade deadline show.
I can't do that much talking, Russ.
Wait, Jillian's going to actually go there because I tried to meet
Yes, she's going to
Jillian
actually be here.
at the Stadium Series with no luck. So maybe I'll have to go see her at your house because that may be the way.
Maybe your only chance to prove that she's real.
Well, she said Thursday, but maybe I'll see her Wednesday. We'll see.
All right. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow. Stay tuned.